on the matter.
Question 5, Mr. CHEUNG Pui-kong. Thank you, President. Some members of the public have complained about the distribution of leaflets on duty-not-paid cigarettes, commonly known as dim sum sheets. The problem has become increasingly rampant. In this connection, will the government inform this council? First, as the government has indicated that the Tobacco and Alcohol Control Office of the Department of Health, the Police, the Customs and Excise Department, and the Housing Department have established a cooperation mechanism to combat illegal distribution of smoking product advertisements in public housing estates. Whether the government has assessed if the mechanism works. If it works, whether the government has looked into why the distribution of dim sum sheets remains a rampant problem. Second, given that the distribution of smoking product advertisements may breach the provisions under the Smoking Public Health Ordinance Cap 371, which stipulate that no person shall display or cause to be displayed in any form any smoking product advertisement, of the status and success in enforcing such provisions. And third, as the Legislative Council passed the Tobacco Control Legislation Amendment Ordinance 2025 in September last year to implement 10 short-term tobacco control measures, how the administration assesses the success of such measures in tackling the distribution of dim sum sheets. Secretary for Health. President, our consolidated reply, after consultation with the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau, the Hong Kong Customs and Excise Department, the Housing Department, and the Department of Health, to the question from Mr. Cheung is as follows. Tobacco products are dutiable goods and are regulated under the Dutiable Commodities Ordinance. However, the illegal sale of illicit cigarettes does exist in Hong Kong. In addition to eroding government revenue, the operations of illicit cigarette syndicates often come with criminal activities. The flyers advertising illicit cigarettes, commonly known as dim sum sheets, are a part of the broader problem of illegal cigarettes. The crux of the issue lies in the supply and distribution networks behind the scenes. In an enforcement operation last week, this customs uncovered a suspected money laundering case involving the handling of proceeds from the sale of illicit cigarettes. This clearly shows that illicit cigarette activities are not just sporadic cases of street crime, but may involve an illegal chain closely linked to other serious crimes. The government has always attached great importance to combating illicit cigarettes. This is not just about protecting government revenue. It's also essential for protecting public health and ensuring public safety. Among others, tougher action against illicit cigarettes was made the top priority by the government in the Tobacco Control Legislation Amendment Ordinance 2025, passed by the Legislative Council last September. Through the amendment ordinance, the government has legislated the relevant offences under the schedule to the Organised and Serious Crimes Ordinance Cap 455. This enables the customs to freeze and confiscate illicit proceeds of crime and assets associated with illicit cigarette activities. That means striking at the source of revenue of the financial networks of illicit cigarette syndicates. In conjunction with the various measures under that ordinance, the customs has been cracking down on illicit cigarettes across the entire chain, including, first, upstream interception of cross-boundary smuggling. The customs combats smuggling via cargo and parcels through intelligence sharing with the mainland and overseas law enforcement agencies. The penalties for duty-not-paid cigarettes have been significantly increased. The number of large-scale cigarette smuggling cases detected by the customs rose from 40 in 2024 to 126 in 2025. The customs has strengthened enforcement at control points with a real-time notification mechanism with the mainland to stop visitors from bringing in excessive duty-free cigarettes in drips and drabs. Penalties for offences compoundable of failing to declare to customs officers have been increased. The number of cases involving penalties for offences compoundable intercepted by the customs at control points rose from 19,071 in 2024 to 26,982 in 2025. The rise in the number of cases involving the seizure of illicit cigarettes reflects the effectiveness of the customs' enhanced efforts in combating such cigarettes. The success of these enforcement strategies does not imply that illicit cigarette activities have grown in scale. To further combat illicit cigarettes, the government will fully implement the duty stamp system by December 2027, requiring duty-paid cigarette packs to be affixed with stamps so that law enforcement officers and the public can clearly distinguish between duty-paid and duty-not-paid cigarettes. For the midstream, the focus is on enforcement against storage. The customs acts Based on risk assessment and intelligence analysis, the customs identifies illicit cigarette storage and repackaging sites and follows up leads obtained from various channels, including dim sum sheets. In addition to recent raids on illicit cigarette storage, the customs cracked down on over 100 cases of illicit cigarette storage and distribution in 2024 and 2025, respectively. On the downstream effort, at sales points run by illicit cigarettes disguised as newspaper stalls and stores, there is a requirement for a seller to prove that the tobacco products sold at a price lower than the tobacco duty are duty paid. To date, the customs has cracked down on a total of 10 cases involving such sales points. Illicit cigarette syndicates employ low-cost, low-risk methods to attract customers, such as placing online advertisements and handing out flyers for illicit cigarettes in public housing estates. Such tactics are an integral part of their operations. The government has been closely monitoring the situation and taking action. This type of behavior also breaches the prohibition of displaying advertisements for tobacco products under the Smoking Public Health Ordinance. Offenders found guilty upon summary conviction are liable to a maximum fine of $15,000. On flyers for illicit cigarettes in public housing estates to align with the overall strategy of combating the illicit cigarette supply chain and safeguarding public health as customs, the Tobacco and Alcohol Control Office, or TACO, of the Department of Health and the police force and the housing department have established a robust interdepartmental cooperation mechanism. If a staff member of the housing department discovers anyone distributing such flyers in housing estates, they will immediately stop the activity and report the matter to the police, and then have the flyers removed right away. If security guards see flyers advertising such cigarettes, the estate office will notify the customs, which will then investigate and follow up. And then if a public housing unit is found to be involved in offenses related to illicit cigarettes, the customs will notify the housing department after the court concludes with the case and take follow-up action. Under the tenancy agreement or the marking scheme for estate management enforcement, from 2021 to April this year, the housing department has taken enforcement action against 47 tenants. Law enforcement agencies face considerable challenges when conducting such operations in public housing estates. Those estates are large in area with numerous buildings, and offenders generally leave the scene quickly after committing the act. If a person is simply found to be in possession of the flyers, officers will need enough evidence, and that means officers will need prolonged surveillance and ambush operations so as to arrest the offenders. From 2025 to April this year, 198 joint operations had been conducted. The customs also carried out enforcement actions across districts to combat street-level sales and orders over the phone. These efforts resulted in the uncovering of cases of public housing units used as storage for illicit cigarettes, and also detecting cases involving the flyers. As for smoking product advertisements in public housing estates, since 2021, TACO has issued 31 summonses for illegal distribution of flyers on tobacco products. The success of these enforcement efforts is also down to proactive reporting and cooperation from residents and frontline security guards, which demonstrate that the multi-level collaborative approach works. During 2025 and the first 4 months of this year, the departments mentioned above and Legislative Council members have visited 36 public housing estates to brief security guards and residents on responding to suspected violations and encouraged them to report illicit cigarette activities. The government will continue to combat illicit cigarette without sparing any effort to eliminate the impact they have on society. Mr. CHEUNG Pui-kong. To stamp out these flyers, we will need education. We also need stiffer penalties. As the acting secretary said, when a unit is found to be the storage of illicit cigarettes, there will be penalty points. Now, if we catch a public housing tenant handing out the flyer, do we allot penalty points to achieve a greater deterrent effect? Secretary. If a resident successfully reports that a unit is involved in illicit cigarettes, and then law enforcement investigates, and then the housing department issues a notice to quit, this informant will get a cash reward and a certificate of appreciation. That's a way to encourage the public to cooperate by reducing such behavior in public housing estates. So we will tackle the problem at source. The member's question was whether it was against the law to hand out the flyers. A reply after the meeting would do. Professor Cheng Pui-kong. Illicit cigarette syndicates adopt all kinds of tactics to evade law enforcement actions. We cannot rely on the public authorities alone. Will the government consider stepping up collaboration with the public, meaning working with schools and parents, so that we prevent teenagers from handing out such flyers for making a quick buck? Can we make it easier to inform such cases? Can we give out supermarket coupons of a smaller value or such a smaller certificate? When a tip-off leads to a notice to quit, can we waive the rent of the informant for a month? That can achieve a greater deterrent effect. Secretary. Sure, we have to work on education for teenagers. The Department of Health and the Council on Smoking and Health adopt a variety of means such as mentorship programs and also drama on this front. Different departments and bureaus, including the Education Bureau, also work together on this. Mr. Jonathan Leung. The distribution of dim sum sheets is a long-standing problem. That issue has grown more rampant. There are even code names for dim sum sheets. The tactics evolve all the time. Paragraph 3 of the main reply says that by 2027, the duty stamp system will be in place. That measure targets cheap white, not illicit cigarettes. The question here is about the dim sum sheet. Criminals' tactics evolve all the time. Will the government work with the housing department to truly resolve the problem at source? Secretary. Thank you. Illicit cigarette syndicates adopt ever-evolving tactics. We are aware of that. We formulate our response strategies accordingly. Those criminals use messaging apps, they adopt a membership system, they take orders over the phone, they have other covert channels to sell their cigarettes. This is all about the supply chain of illicit cigarettes. The dim sum sheets are just advertisement. The flyers are just a small part of the whole chain of illicit cigarettes. That's why we think we have to combat the broader problem of illicit cigarettes. The advertisements may be online or may take the form of flyers. The government combats all these forms of advertisement. If we spot such ads online, we will remove the social media platform to block the account and remove the ad. In 2025, 1,781 such advertisements were taken off. Under the amended law, offenses related to illicit cigarettes are now included in the schedule to the Organized and Serious Crimes Ordinance. That's to give the customs greater power to address the problem. Members have asked the Bureau to work with the Housing Department to crack down on illicit cigarettes. Mr. Lau Ka-kong. Mr. Lau Ka-kong. The Bureau has answered the question I was going to ask. Mr. Chris Ip. The Bureau, TACO, and the Customs have made a serious effort to crack down on illicit cigarettes. I commend the effort. In housing estates, flyers known as dim sum sheets are handed out. This is a situation I raised in a question 2 weeks ago. For residents of those housing estates, you can resort to the marking scheme. But then for non-residents, we will need joint enforcement operations, and even then there are struggles for enforcement operations. So can we expand the scope of no smoking areas such that TACO officers can enforce the law in public housing estates? Can we provide the legal basis for officers to enforce the law, not just against smoking, but also illicit cigarettes in public housing estates? Secretary. TACO can deal with some of the illegal activities in public housing estates. Other problems can be dealt with by the management office. For non-residents engaging in such acts in a public housing estate, say smoking in an area that is not a no-smoking area, the housing department officers will advise such people to leave the premises. If it is a resident of the housing estate, they may be subject to the penalty point. We have also heard members' views that we should work with the housing department on joint operations. In 2025, up to April this year, across Hong Kong, there were 198 joint operations. Dr. Johnny Ng. So one tactic adopted by criminals is online ads, and we have seen that our efforts to crack down have paid off. Criminals provide a number leading to a WhatsApp group so that residents can order illicit cigarettes. How do we combat such groups? Do we have success stories from the past? Secretary. There are different ways to go about it. Messaging apps are used. Social media platforms can also be a way to advertise illicit cigarettes. We take all these problems seriously. The Customs and TACO conduct online inspections for websites and social media platforms. If they see something is wrong, they request the removal of the ads immediately. Whatever promotional tactics the syndicates use, we enforce the law. In 2025, TACO and the Customs removed 1,288 and 483 ads respectively. Under Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. Under the Smoking Public Health Ordinance, anyone advertising or causes to be advertised smoking information on a smoking product will commit an offense. The enforcement rests with the Customs. For online ads, the customs has been inspecting such websites. They also perform undercover operations. If they see suspected cases of illicit cigarettes, they refer the cases to tackle. We're grateful to the member for the question. We will keep up with the effort. The member's question is about WhatsApp groups. Please provide a supplementary reply after the meeting. Mr. Peter Shiu. We support the Health Bureau's effort. The customs has also cracked down on illicit cigarettes. We thank them for their effort. We have the Undersecretary for Financial Services and the Treasury here because illicit cigarettes have eroded our revenue from the duty on tobacco. On tallying illicit cigarette product, people in the industry have collected cigarette packs. For illicit cigarettes and cheap right, they make up 61% of the smoking product. And that means for every 10 packs of cigarettes you buy in Hong Kong, 6 of them are duty not paid cigarettes. There are many tactics employed for illicit cigarettes. Today we're focusing on dim sum sheets. In 2021, there were 31 summonses with a fine up to $8,000. Paragraph 5 says the maximum fine is $50,000. The judge handed down a lenient fine. When that's the case, do we appeal so that we can deter people from handing out the dim sum sheets, or can we stiffen the penalties to deter people from handing out such flyers? Who will give a reply, please? On handing out flyers, this is about displaying an advertisement of smoking product. There's a penalty for that. The flyers are a part of a broader chain of illicit cigarettes. There are other criminal activities involved. The penalty is imposed based on the gravity of the offense.